What blood test do you need to get for optimal health? What do you say to your doctor so he doesn't refuse many of the tests that you're asking for? And what are the pre-test blood guidelines that are very important to know before you get your blood drawn so your blood results aren't inaccurate, invalid, and unreliable? I'm Alexander, Strength of Saad, and we're going to be going through my essential blood testing guide that I've developed for my clients, and in the 100+ blood analysis that I've done has been a vital resource I've created to help make getting bloods done and getting that vital information so much more effortless, easy, and less overwhelming. The link is in the bio to access this resource. Now I'm going to explain what you can go and do now when you walk in the doctor's office, and I'm going to explain this blood testing guide for you guys so you can understand it clearly. Now, if you would like to skip all of this, a very important thing to know is you don't need to go to your doctor to get a blood test. In fact, you can skip that whole process, and I recommend this for people who are time poor and money stable. So I have provided 3 of my favorite tests here: the metabolic panel with vitamin D from iScreen, essential fatty acids, very important to get omega-3s tested, and then the mineral panel or basic mineral copper zinc test. If you can also add on ceruloplasmin as well, that would be great as well. But those are the top 3 panels that I will get from my clients, and then from there I will add on extras on a case-by-case depending on what we get back, whether we need more. These are affiliate links, FYI. But I have found iScreen to be the best for affordability, and they have the most complete panel that I've seen, as opposed to going to the doctors and asking, hey doc, can I get all of these? And then you get resistance and you get no's and things like that. So they're all there. The links are there if you would like to use them. And then I'm going to walk you through my level 1, my level 2, my level 3 blood analysis guides. Now, I've actually learnt this from Dr. David Weatherby. I've done his blood chemistry analysis course, and this is adapted from that. So we're standing on the shoulders of giants here, from people who have done thousands to tens of thousands of blood analysis testing. If you need help interpreting these tests, we will get to that later on, but you should seek out either your doctor and or in conjunction with a functional health practitioner like myself or whoever else you prefer. And there's links there if you're interested in that. But let's get to what tests do you get. All right. Now, the level 1 is going to be the most basic and foundational. I would run this on every client patient at minimum. The level 2, well, these are for my athletes. Coach a lot of athletes, have done many hundreds of times. And these types of people, I would consider anyone an athlete, not just competitive athletes, but people who are engaging in sport, even at a non-competitive level, or people who weight train and are physically active more than 3 to 4 times a week. And why I consider them an athlete is because the demands placed on the physiological systems are at a measurably higher demand to the average sedentary person. As a result, more micronutrients will be depleted. There will be higher demands on the entire system, and there is a greater necessity to be proactive towards addressing those potential dysfunctions that can come. An example is the human body needs about 10 to 20% more magnesium for frequent activity exercising people who exercise, at least 4 times a week. And so that's just magnesium, let alone the cornucopia of other nutrients that you will need. Level 3 is anti-aging, and this is the full bells and whistles. This is suited well for the 30+ years olds who want to understand the most thorough analysis of their health and be proactive ultimately from a longevity perspective. But this also will be the most costly and hardest to get, and that's why I'll typically use, I'm a practitioner through Nutripath in Australia, and so I'll typically use Nutripath to then custom order specific tests, like we might do histamine, DAO, we might do thyroid antibody testing, etc., if you want to look a bit deeper, and they can get that blood drawn themselves once I do that. So, any clients listening to this, we can get basically any test, including stool analysis that we want, and other people who want consultations, you can do the same with me if you're interested in that at all. Now, if we scroll down here, we're going to see the level 1. And simply, I know it's going to seem a bit overwhelming. You don't have to go to your doctor and actually say, "Doc, I want glucose, hemoglobin A1C, BUN, creatinine, etc." You don't have to go in there and ask that. I'm going to explain what you can ask, but first I'm just going to explain what you're going to be getting and the recommended blood panels. This is actually really good for other health professionals as well who want to understand how we partition out different categories of blood panels. And so you can see the difference here. We're not going to go through them all, but when you go in and ask your doctor, one of the most simple things people ask is, "Can I get a blood test?" And the doctor was going to maybe ask you a couple of questions if they have time, they can be bothered, and they will then create a very basic blood test panel for you. Unfortunately, these are very basic, and I'll scroll down here just to skip ahead of what it could look like. So this is an example of what a blood panel slip could look like, and when my clients go into the doctor and ask that, sometimes all they'll get is literally one line of blood tests. So we're talking about maybe half a dozen blood tests. And as you can see, this is an example of a client being able to get everything off the first go from a good doctor who has a greater understanding of proactive, integrative medicine and health, which is great. This is a great scenario and the best case scenario. But unfortunately, I've had clients have to go from doctor to doctor to doctor, right, and waste all this time, and then it's so much more delayed to be able to help you and help the client. And so that's why I recommend to you guys is, look, if you can budget a few $100s, just go to the links above and get those tests yourself. You're going to save a whole bunch of time. You go straight to the pathology lab. Melbourne Pathology has been the most reliable to me in Australia. Dorevitch is hit and miss, so I recommend that. For other countries, you can DM me on Instagram at Strength of Saad and we can discuss that. So that's a limitation. You're not going to get many if you just go and ask for, "Hey doc, can I get a blood test?" You can be more specific and say, "Can I get a full blood panel with thyroid and this and that?" And that will do a little bit of better job, but you're often going to get resistance from the doctor for a number of reasons. And I'm going to explain that in here as well for those who care to understand, because me included, we often admonish and maybe denigrate to an extent the traditional medical system and doctors. And I think part of that is warranted, but part of it is really just an echo chamber of biased integrative health professionals like myself coming together and being like, doctors are bad, doctors don't know this, doctors don't know that. And I really want to give a lot of amazing credit to doctors because they save lives. What they do is important. I just think the system itself has actually is operating on 50, 40-year-old beliefs and approaches and conventional wisdom that unfortunately hasn't caught up to this new wave of integrative, holistic medicine that people like me are now utilizing to really transform lives in a much more proactive way. So you can read those all in your own time. You can click load more and more will load up for you. And the link's also in my bio on my Instagram as well, at Strength of Saad. And here are some add-ons as well, just so you know what some other testing is all done by category. So luteinizing hormone, follicle-stimulating hormone, really important for our females, even our males, particularly our males on PEDs. And mineral panels, really important. I always get zinc ceruloplasmin, absolutely, but I'll get into that in a second, a little bit later. Well, actually, no. Let's get into it actually right now. So I'll briefly break down. So you'll go in, you go to your doctor, and what do you say? Okay, if you're going to go into your doctor, you can go and say, "Doc, I want a full blood panel, please." Okay, full blood panel, and he'll write you up. And then before he does that, though, you can emphasize that you can say it in these categories, and you can write these down if it's helpful to you. You want thyroid. Full thyroid panel, TSH, T3, T4, so you want the full thyroid panel. Hormones, you can just say hormones. If you don't have to get too specific here. Really important, vitamin D, Most doctors should be able to get that one, but sometimes it costs for people. You want B vitamins. You want homocysteine, which will help you understand how well you're methylating, or just a representation of your B vitamin status as well, and helps put us create correlations and much better confidence towards what you're deficient in from a folate, B vitamin status, methylation perspective. A big mistake people make is that the doc gets iron and they write down, they'll just write down one marker like ferritin. And that's we need much more than that. We need a complete panel. So we want iron studies. You want the full iron panel, transferrin saturation, iron, and you can get like total iron binding capacity as well. But we want ferritin, iron, and we would really need to get transferrin saturation, because that's going to represent how much iron is in that iron carrying molecule around the body and how saturated it is, how many there are and how saturated it is. Very important for understanding iron and copper deficiencies. So folate, really important. We did a red cell folate, a bit more accurate here. Active B12 is a lot more accurate than serum B12. Serum B12 takes a lot longer to detect deficiency from. So I like to do active B12 as well to have more certainty. Really important is zinc and copper. And if I can as well, I'll get the copper carrying molecule, ceruloplasmin. And then together, we can get a great picture and understanding of what's the immune system looks like, what's the relevance to allergies and histamine, even potentially libido, testosterone for our men, because zinc plays a small role there, but particularly immune health and even hematology, because copper plays a role with our red blood cell production and red blood cell flow. So really important that we get zinc, copper, and ideally ceruloplasmin. Above, I've just gotten zinc and copper. You can still have some good assessments just based off that. Ceruloplasmin is just like a bonus on top. Omega-3 index, critically important for as a status for longevity, inflammation, there's a connection between red blood cells and hematology as well, and higher omega-3 status has been associated with a very large amount of now data set that is emerging. Now, it's not all randomized controlled trials, but it's becoming an overwhelming amount of data set particularly by Dr. Bill Harris, one of the world's most leading experts on omega-3s, because a lot of people undereat or don't eat fatty fish. Omega-3s are critical. I use them often in my cases for people with skin issues, eczema, etc., or systemic inflammation, where they're dealing with an immune insult, or where they're dealing with, I can see high CRP, or whether I can see like a diseased pathological state. I will definitely use omega-3s as an adjunct to modulate and resolve inflammation, and even specialized perma-resolving mediators as well to get to the root cause of actually resolving it instead of just dampening it. Anyway, omega-3s really important. We want to aim for a status above 8%. Above 8%. You can also buy that online very easily as well. You can just type that in Google if you have a problem there, but I'll put the link above. CRP, that's a classic, C-reactive protein. Mercury and arsenic. I like doing mercury at least once because, look, most people aren't going to be high, but there's going to be a small subset of the population that is going to be high. Like mercury poisoning actually nearly killed Tony Robbins, if you're not familiar. His first podcast with Tim Ferriss talks about that, really interesting, and how much fish and sardines he was eating, I believe it was, and how that was suspectively jacking up his mercury. And so people who eat a lot of fish or work in environments, particularly men who work in environments whether it's farms, whether they're handling like physical labor jobs that are around a lot of airborne and physical metal properties, important. Arsenic, because a lot of white rice can be a little bit higher in arsenic, and I just like to eliminate these as big variables. It's not something I get every time. I just like to get all these at first, and then from then on we'll follow up on an as needed basis. For the rest, the basic hematology, the basic mineral status and cholesterol, lipid panel, usually almost all doctors will absolutely already get that, so I don't need to emphasize that right here. But insulin is something that they don't always get, so you can definitely ask for that as well. If you're just wondering why I haven't talked about certain things here, female health panel, really important, particularly for whether you're on oral contraceptive or just contraceptive or not. Very important for seeing things like progesterone, because PMS symptoms and mood dysregulation is really linked to that, and a lot of anxiety, panic attacks, depression, etc. So really important there for our females. So that's a little explanation of which ones you should get. You could basically walk into your doctor and literally just show them that photo, and he's going to either say, no way. Most of them will say, no way, you don't need all that. You're young, you're healthy, you're blah, 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 right? You're not nearly dead yet, right? Or you're not diseased, overweight, obese, whatever the case may be. Now, this is how the traditional medical system is set up for most doctors. I'd say 80+%, maybe even higher. I'm not going to try and fight and argue here. You're just going to waste energy. They are an authority in the room, and unless they're not going to, even if you're a health professional like me, I could go in there and they'll even have a level probably of contempt towards me. So even though I can dance with them, and even though I could disagree or justify, and so what can we do instead? Well, we take the path of least resistance. Now, obviously, that's the links above if you want to take the real path of least resistance, or you can go in there and you can explain your many symptoms that you have. Now, for a lot of you, it's going to be legitimate. The more symptoms you have, the more they can justify to Medicare, because doctors will get, I don't know if audited is the right word. I'm forgetting the right word from my doctor, but assessed, and they're assessed. And if they're constantly doing blood tests, because the medical system and Medicare pays for them, and in America it's different, privately owned and things like that, can be very expensive then. So private testing is huge here. Anyway, in Australia and in other countries like it, we have a Medicare system that pays for it. Now, the doctors have to justify to Medicare and the systems associated with that why they're doing certain tests. So you can understand from their perspective why they're not just going to willy-nilly be super excited to get all of your tests because you want to be proactive, because you're 22 years old and you want to be proactive, and your health professional or coach said to get all these tests. They're not going to just buy that. Even if you're a dietitian recommending all of these things, or you're a naturopath, you're probably going to even struggle to do that. So what you can do is, the more symptoms you have, the more they can justify, because for some people, these are all justified. So what do? Justification examples. And I explain this. I say what to be aware of, how some doctors understand preventative functional medicine, some don't. If you haven't found it yet, if you're a client, have in our Discord, I have the doctors and physicians section you can read, and you can see the recommended doctors we have. Now, the more symptoms you have, the sicker you are, the more they can justify. So, if you're struggling with this, message me on Instagram. But I put some justification examples in here. The more you list, the more they can justify. So basically, I'm not saying you should do this. I'm saying you could do this. And I may or may not have suggested this to my own clients with success. And you can go in there, and they don't know that you have these symptoms 100%. But you could go in there and say, I've been having gastrointestinal problems for a long period of time. Now, just saying that alone, a lot of doctors are quite suspicious. It's like it's in your head. Like, this is what doctors will say. I've heard doctors say this. It's not conjecture. This is actual reality. Doctors will say to my clients with like PMS issues or GI issues, say it's in your head. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with you if they look at the bloods. Come back later, or just exercise and eat healthy. Like, this is literal responses that I'm paraphrasing that doctors have said with serious problems. So we'll combine it together. I got gut problems. Let's say you got bloating, gassiness, pain. Pain is a big one that they'll take impact. They'll take heed on. Really bad energy, lethargic, brain fog, poor memory, intermittent skin issues. Even though if you don't have skin issues at the time, you can say intermittent skin issues. Plant-based diet, that's a big one. They'll be able to justify more vitamins and minerals, for example. Menstrual cycle irregularities, you could say got really bad PMS symptoms. Smoking, that you'll be able to get a lot of the inflammatory markers then. You drink frequently as well. You'll be able to get more there. No sex drive, low libido, and hair loss. So you can say all these, and hair loss will help you with thyroid. You can say all of these things, like each one's like specifically picked. And you can say more if you want. You can say literally all of those things, and you should be able to get a lot more tests than you would be able to do ordinarily. So that's a little hack for justifications of how you can get as many blood tests as possible, and whatever you can't get, you can come to me and we can order them separately. No problem, no questions asked. And so this is a summary of what I just said in a much shorter way. And here are some examples here of me explaining the standard biochemical analysis and why we do some of the tests. So this is just a basic explanation for some of the tests. I haven't done all, some are more obvious, of why we're getting the tests, okay? That you can, if you want, say to your doctor, but it may be a waste of your time. Now, lastly, let's finish on pre-blood testing guidelines. This is very important because, a lot of people make mistakes and errors before they get their blood drawn, meaning you get it pulled out of you, and it makes the data invalid, unreliable, and it may make you look sick, diseased. Things might go out of range, and it may look like things are worse, and you're doing an intervention or some type of supplement based off a marker or markers that are actually perfectly fine, but you've made it worse, and your doctor doesn't know. Like maybe they, for example, don't understand that the effects of physical weight training. They don't remember or understand the very basic effects of weight training and high protein intake on creatinine and urea, and so now he thinks you might have some liver problems. So it's a very basic one. Most doctors really should know that, but there's a million examples like that. For example, dehydration. Now, I'm going to walk you through them and what you need to do before your blood test to make sure you're not wasting your time and money and getting unreliable data, because that's the goal. We want accuracy. Number one, every time we don't put gospel into one set of blood test results. We need to see a variety of them together to build out a correlation map and to see a pattern. So I'm not freaking out because of one blood test and something's out of range or a bunch of things are out of range. We're making some assumptions and correlations on it, but we're building a pattern and we're seeing where it's going, because there's many things that can influence blood test results off one day. For example, your fasting blood glucose levels can be highly variable depending on whether you're fasted 8 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours. And so every time you go and get a blood test, try and get it on the same day at as close as possible to the same time, within an hour of the same time each time. For example, I would typically get it a Monday morning at around 8 a.m. I'd get my blood drawn. Okay, and I've done that historically for years, and that means consistently, because there's a lot of variables here. Sunday, it's usually a recovery day for people. It's usually a lower day, so you can more consistently control that pre-days variable. Because if you're doing all different types of days, it's going to be much harder to control for and compare to for future tests. Thyroid, inflammatory markers, liver enzymes can change dramatically after a night of sleep deprivation or hard training the day before. So, number one, perform the test the most similar time and day. Females, try to get your blood test taken. Let me make this pink. That's nice. Try to get your blood test taken on approximately day 21 to measure the peak luteal phase hormonal response. So just after ovulation, because that's when your progesterone should be pretty high. And it's a certain point in the menstrual cycle that we can make more confident assessments from. Because if you get it really early in the cycle, just after the period, for example, not only do you affect your iron stores because you've just had a period, and now you're not going to be able to make accurate assessments of your iron panel because you just got your blood test after your period. Your iron status is going to look a bit differently just after your period compared to 21 days after. You just bled, and if you're a heavy flow, right, you're going to lose a meaningful amount of iron, at least serum, like floating in the bloodstream. Then your doctor's going to say, you're anemic, you're deficient. It's like, hold on, are you sure? Or does she just have heavy flow and you just got it tested within 5 days of her period? The timing of this is crucially important, but doctors don't tell you this because a doctor won't even spend 24 minutes with you in the room like I'm spending here on a video. My blood work analysis consults are 75 to 90 minutes, and on the back end, I'm doing hours of assessment. The medical system is just not set up for this type of personal care. And that's where people like me come in, right? And it's a tool and a system that has this utility, but it's failed a lot of people. And that's why this has been birthed, this different approach that we then combine together. It's traditional with integrative together. It's not better or worse. I don't like that. I just don't love the judgment that we put on each other so much, because it's like, you're better, I'm better. It's like, why don't we just work as a team here? And that's what I'm trying to do here. So females, get it tested. I know you only have like a short period in the month to do this. It's not like males, you can do almost any day. I know it's not as convenient, but really it's going to save you a lot of headache in the long run, because you're going to be able to make decisions with accuracy. It's like if you wear glasses, like put the glasses on, are they 20/20 or is it still blurry? It's like that. This is important. Do not do any type of structured exercise such as weight training or high intensity activity in the 24 hours pre-blood draw. Now, this is absolute minimum. Many people and studies even show that your liver enzymes are going to be elevated even 5 to 7 days. 5 to 7 days after high intensity activity such as weight training. So in an ideal world, you're doing it in a deload week, or perhaps after a holiday, although that could be confounded because it's a holiday. Ideally after like 5 to 7 days, if you can stand it. Now, I don't think I've ever done a blood test 5 to 7 days after weight training, because I've been training pretty much every day for like since I was 15. So, do the math on that. And I'm okay with that because I have a level of consistency and reliability with my blood results, and my liver enzymes aren't so necessarily abnormally elevated, or my urea or creatinine is so abnormally elevated that I'm going to need to have a washout period. If they were, I would. If high stress events happen in 24 to 48 hours pre-test, do not do the test. For example, I'll have male clients of mine who will get stressed and feel disappointed over their testosterone being low. Not only does one testosterone marker, like free testosterone, like you'll see like, oh, it's under 300 nanograms, or he's got a testosterone of 1,000. We're chasing numbers here, and it's a big kind of common misconception that's sexy, but it misses the whole complete picture. I want to look at luteinizing hormone. We want to look at free testosterone. We want to look at sex hormone binding globulin to see how much testosterone is actually bound up. Like, you're missing a complete picture. Not only that, you got to realize that hormones are very influenced by binaural patterns of sleep, circadian patterns and basic stress, emotional patterns. You have a big fight with somebody the day before. You have a family stress event, an illness, a death, a funeral. You get fired, a breakup. Don't do the blood test then. You might not feel that bad for some of these things, but often through suppression and repression of emotions and distraction and disassociation, we can avoid feeling. So feelings are unreliable in this realm of internal biochemistry and blood work. We need to go off objectivity and logic. Hence, 24 to 48 hours, avoid it, just do it the next week. Just heal in the way you need to heal and come back later. If you get an abnormally bad night of sleep, retest later. Retest when you get some sleep. So for example, it's all depending on the average. If you average 7 hours of sleep a night and you have a variance of more than 25%, I would say retest for later, because it's not an accurate, and people might think, well, you're just like so focused on the details here. Man, it's blood work. It's your internal biochemistry. Of course, we're focused on the details here. We're not leaving things up to chance. This is the type of health professional and person I am. I'm high in conscientiousness, high in industrious. I'm very detail orientated, and I observe and see, like, my mind's constantly going, right? So keep that bias in mind. However, it's not just bias, it's also logic and first principles. Highly complex, highly nuanced, minimize the co-variables that can influence in a negative way. This one's super important. Drink at least 1 to 1.5 liters of water in the morning before a test. For larger people and males, you can go towards 1.5. For females, you can go on the lower end. Why? Well, this is a whole different 10-minute conversation about hydration status, changing the actual concentration of certain blood substances in the test tube and the vial that gets taken. But this is very important to know, to make sure you're hydrated. Otherwise, it'll skew your hematology. You might look fine, because if you're dehydrated, you might pull that hematology in a direction that you might not look anemic, because your MCV might go down. You might have certain markers that change in a favorable way, and you might look fine when you otherwise might look anemic. So you might be iron deficient, or you might be deficient in B vitamins and things like that. There's many types of anemia. Thus, and there's other markers even on the blood test to show that you're dehydrated as well. So we can see it, but it's like, man, we got to do this again now. Or it's like, man, we got to keep in mind how, God, I don't know if I can make. So the level of confidence a health professional can make for certain things now goes from maybe a 9 or an 8 out of 10 to like a 5.5 or 6 out of 10. And it's like, man, you paying this person all this money, or you spending all this time, and this is so important to you. Let's make sure we get it right from the start. Drink at least 1 to 1.5 liters. From my understanding, I haven't seen any detriments to hyperhydration coming into a blood test. You'll urinate a lot. After, just have some more salt to make sure you're bringing back some minerals into your body. Anyway, 1 to 1.5 liters of water. Make sure you're well hydrated and you're peeing near clear. Really important to make sure you don't skew your hematology in a delusional way. No drugs or alcohol 24 to 48 liters before a test. Look, drugs is a complex one, because there's a lot of different types of drugs that can affect this. So really, ideally, I'd go. Let me update this. I said, so I gave you guys a lot of leeway there. Ideally, 1 to 2 weeks. Let's be real. Alcohol has a little bit more flexibility there. The big questions like supplements. Should I continue to take? I'm gonna add a little emoji here. Should I continue to take supplements? Well, you can continue. You know what? Continue to take protein is fine. The rest, or almost all of the rest, there's a lot, obviously, stop taking at least 5 days before. So your magnesium, your zinc, obviously prescribed medications, listen to your doctor there. We're talking about supplements. Kick out the magnesium, kick out the zinc, your omega-3s you can continue to take, because the omega-3 status is based on the average of the last 100 days of your red blood cells, because it's based on your red blood cells, and red blood cells take 100 days to renew and kind of remake, and so you won't really have any effect there. So you continue to take protein, omega-3s, but everything, B vitamins, etc. It's going to raise your acute serum concentration dramatically, and we want to come into this with more of a complete, accurate picture of your baseline average status. So when we take supplements and we consume nutrients, vitamin C is a great example. There's a really big serum increase in concentration, but vitamin C has a really quick excretion rate. Right? Vitamin C concentrations go down quite rapidly. I think it's somewhere between the 30 to 60-ish range, but they can go up all the way to 200 or 250, and they cap out around there. And this is an example of why, or it partly explains why the dosages of vitamin C are so high in treating certain infections like cold and flu. So we're doing, for example, 4 to 8 grams per day to keep those concentrations that high. You can see more in my cold and flu ebook. I give you guys all the supplements and all the guidelines you can do to recover 30% faster from your cold and flu. My link is in my Instagram bio on my website. But cease taking all supplements except protein and omega-3s are fine. So those are 8 pre-test blood guidelines. Adhere to these and you'll have much more accurate test. And that summarizes the essential blood testing guideline. What do you do now? All of you are going to have a problem of like, oh, what do I do now with all these results? If everything is in range and it looks fine, that doesn't necessarily mean things are fine. be very, very clear on this. Most of the blood tests I look at, they're in range. Yet most of the people I see who have blood tests in range have problems. And we have solutions, and I assess, not only do they have symptomatic problems, they have observed biochemical problems as a result of looking at the blood test. I can say, okay, this is low, this is high, this is in this range, and I'll build a picture together, and I can see, like for example, thyroid is probably the best example. Thyroid, we have this big 0.5 to 4 range. Massive range. Most people are going to fit in that. What? So you have to exit 4 before they start considering you for Hashimoto's, where you can have Hashimoto's and thyroid dysfunction before that, especially if you look at thyroid antibodies and T3 and T4, etc. And so, and not only that, I'm forgetting which institution, but new evidence suggests anyway that that range should be different. That range is way too wide and way too big, and it should be somewhere between 0.5 and 1.5 or 0.5 to 2 maximum. So it should be really cut in half, but you don't know that. And that's just one test in 1 minute. There's an example for that. Almost every single test has an optimal range. And people are going to wait until they have dysfunction. You are going to wait, the doctor's going to wait, and you don't know any better because you haven't been educated. Not your fault necessarily, but it's now your responsibility to educate yourself. This is why I'm here doing this video, to educate yourself that just because something's in range doesn't mean that's okay. Because why do you think you're feeling the way you're feeling? Or do you want to minimize feeling bad, having all these symptoms that would then necessitate you to go see a health professional and coach for years on end to fix them? You can avoid that, or at least minimize it dramatically by being proactive now and having an understanding that just because something's in range doesn't mean it's optimal or fine. So that's when, look, this is my level of bias here. Obviously, I'm a health professional, this is what I do. I have a whole bunch of options for blood work analysis, whether you have a small budget of just $100 or whether you want something more extensive and premium. So most people have at least $100 available to them. And so I've created options for everybody. I didn't make this video so you can then go do my blood work analysis. I did this video because I actually realized the notion I provided, it's not articulated in the best way. Like sometimes it's hard for people to really understand, and they still ask me a lot of questions about getting their blood tested. And I was just using a lot of time up trying to answer these questions. So that was the primary reason I wanted to make this, is so my clients and you guys could understand how to get your blood test tested. And there's thousands of people that I hope end up watching this that don't actually understand how to go in and get the blood test, and I will never work with. And I hope it does help you guys sincerely. If you do want to, you got the data back, maybe you're not ready to commit to like a health professional long-term, like 6 to 12 months, that's okay. I understand. You can click the link below, strengthofsaad.com/bloods. And you can select whatever option you want if you want to now get your blood work analyzed and interpreted by a functional health practitioner who's done this over 100 times. And there's video examples there if you want to see what you would get. The report, we do a 50, 60 plus page, easy to read, comprehensive report. If you just want to start off with that, you can. You don't have to do anything else. You can then, maybe some of you are health enthusiasts and you want to take matters into your own hands, but you at least want some sort of summary and guide and point me in the direction what's optimal. I can answer what's optimal very easily with the first package there below. Or if you want something more complete and comprehensive and you like to have the back and forth and you like to be justified and you like to have more support in your corner, then there's that option as well. But look, I hope this has been valuable. You can DM me at Strength of Saad if you have any follow-up questions or support. I didn't answer anything. I'm here. You don't need to work with me, but if you need support, regardless, DM me at Strength of Saad and go get your blood tested and do it every 6 to 12 months and then build the picture. That data will be invaluable as you age, because you'll be able to compare vital information that when you do encounter problems, you'll have a baseline to compare against, which will be so valuable beyond measure. I'm Alexander, Strength of Saad. Thank you for watching.